So with season 2 of Helluva Boss releasing in less than a month, I thought it would be the perfect time to go back and rewatch all of season 1's episodes. After binging all the episodes, I noticed a ton of cool details that I didn't catch the first time around. In this video, I'll go episode by episode and talk about some of the things I liked, disliked, and also cover some of the extra Easter eggs in each one that you yourself may have missed. At the end, I'll give my final thoughts on the series and also a ranking of which episodes I liked the most. First off, we have the pilot. The Helluva Boss pilot was first teased in an update video by Vivzy once the initial Has-Been Hotel pilot hit 7 million views. She talked about the show and showed some footage as well. This followed up with a pilot dropping 2 weeks later on November 25th, 2019. The pilot immediately introduces us to a new cast of characters. We are shown Millie, Moxie, Blitzo, Luna, and Stolas. One important thing to note is that Erica Linebeck, the voice actor for Luna, also voices Millie in the pilot. Stolas is voiced by Brock Baker, however he was replaced later by Bryce Pinkham. One thing to note about the pilot is it suffers from some inconsistent animation errors. These problems existed in the Has-Been Hotel pilot as well. These can be excused though, since shortly after the pilot was made, Vivzy set up the Spindlehorse studio to work on the series. The rougher animation can take away from the episode a bit at times, but it's not bad enough to impact your enjoyment of the episode. There are numerous Has-Been Hotel references throughout the episode, with my favourite one being Luna watching Charlie's song on her computer. The pilot also includes the IMP jingle. This is the first musical number in the series and I like it. It's catchy and it sets the tone for the episode really well. There's also a Vivzy Pop reference during the jingle where we can see Vivzy and some other team members as humans. I personally love seeing cool references in the backgrounds of shows. This is something Helluva Boss excels at and you'll see it a ton more in future episodes. One thing that I didn't catch the first time I watched the episode in 2019 was the animation error when Moxie shoots the kid. He shoots them with a double-barreled shotgun in one moment, then he's seen with a sniper rifle a few seconds later. I genuinely never noticed this, but after seeing dozens of Reddit posts pointing it out, I can't unsee it. Obviously this small error is just a nitpick, but let me know down below if you noticed it the first time you watched the pilot. I really like the insurance joke. I've seen it memed a lot as well, so I know a lot of people enjoyed it too. We also get a first look at Stolas' house. In later episodes we see it again and the outside layout of his house changes drastically, so it's interesting to see how it's developed over time. We can see an Octavia cameo in a portrait in the background. This is the first glimpse of her until she was revealed in episode 2. There's a cameo for Blitzo's circus in the background as well. This hints towards the eventual Lululand episode. Blitzo's sibling cameo is also seen in a background portrait. There was discussions about the portrait on Reddit because it was edited in later episodes to remove one of the characters. This was explained in episode 7 when he found out that the older character is Blitzo's mum, with the other characters being Blitzo's sister Barbie Wire. I thought this was funny, but we can see a Moxie single on the wall that literally just says Moxie. We also get to see the Moxie and Millie song during the episode. Vivzy uploaded the full song later to her channel, but I think it was a great addition to the episode. The final joke is one of my favourites in the episode when Blitzo says if you try and get a refund you won't get your money back. This will be relevant in future episodes. As for my overall thoughts on the pilot, there were a couple of things I liked and a couple of things I disliked. Firstly, I didn't enjoy the kid character. I just thought he was a bit boring with no likeable qualities. The fact that he was voiced by Richard Horvitz was a bit jarring as well. Hearing a second character with an identical voice to Moxie's just made it too distracting. The episode did a basic job of outlining each character's personality, however it kind of forces it down your throat a little. It probably could have been more effective to spread it over 2 episodes. One example would be that the pilot was mainly cut in gags with flashbacks within a flashback. This reminds me of Family Guy and can work quite well, but since the majority of the episode was flashbacks, it was a bit annoying. The episode can be watered down to character gets introduced and then a cut-in gag follows to explain their backstory. I feel like if they had written the episode more similar to a show like The Office, with killing being a side effect, it would have worked better. While I personally enjoyed the episode, it's difficult to place it any higher than D while acknowledging all the criticisms of the episode. As a result, I'm going to place the episode in D tier. The episode isn't bad, however compared to the later episodes, it's definitely at the bottom of the list. It was the pilot of the series and provided the groundwork for future episodes to build upon, and I thought it did a great job at that. Up next is episode 1. Immediately we're thrown into a nice intro with the Good Morning song. We're introduced to Miss Mayberry and I love her character. She's got tons of personality and throwing the kid into the roof was hilarious as well. I'd also like to point out that the sex scene in this episode is the most replayed part on YouTube. The scene where Blitzo has buttons on his desk for different occasions was funny. This was memed a lot, especially on Reddit. In the background we can see a Fizzarolli cameo. This links back to what the pilot did, where we can see sneak peeks and Easter eggs in the background, which gives us hints on characters that will show up later. A Blitzo horse cameo can also be seen, showing Blitzo's love of horses, which becomes a key character trait of his. One thing that is most noticeable in this episode is the more consistent animation style. It looks way better than the pilot and definitely helps reiterate how talented Vivzy Pop and the Spindlehorse team are at their work. Luna holding the page was really funny, it ended up becoming a meme later. The reference on the billboard in the background was fun to see as well. Moxie's noises are really cute and him crying became a meme. I only noticed this after the episode came out, but there's tons of hints in the background of the house that the family is evil before the big reveal. A Reddit user pointed this out, but my personal favourite background gag is the live, laugh, laugh love message on the wall. We also get introduced to Stolas' new voice actor, Bryce Pinkham. Originally, I didn't like the new voice, but I ended up growing to enjoy it over the original. There was drama to do with the original voice actor being replaced, which I won't get into, but I think Bryce was an excellent replacement. The episode also does the Stolas censorship joke again, where he swears down the phone and it's bleeped out. This time it's funnier though, because later in the episode Stolas is still talking. The imps being immune to fire joke was great too, along with the police blowing up the house. I died the first time I saw it. It was my favourite joke of the episode. Vivian Nixon was also the new Millie voice actor in this episode. Again, like the Stolas replacement, I didn't like the new voice actor. I thought her southern accent was too heavy, but gradually I started to love it. I also didn't realise that Luna's voice actor, Erica Lineback, also voiced Millie in the pilot. So having two characters voiced by the same actor is a bit jarring, so I'm glad that the voice was swapped out. Overall, I thought this was a good episode. It had some decent jokes and set the pace for each episode to follow from. The Good Morning song was good, but not as good as the ones in the pilot. The bit about Moxie not wanting to kill was a bit annoying when I first watched it. It doesn't really make sense since killing is his job. He also killed a child in the pilot, so him not wanting to kill a family doesn't add up. He has since got over this in future episodes, however. I'm going to put episode 1 in C tier. It's definitely a step up from the pilot and sets the stage for the rest of the series to follow on from. We get a couple good laughs and see the cast performing their job as a killing business. The next episode is Lululand, and this episode was a banger. Firstly, we get a look at the new revamped Stolas house. It's much improved over the pilot's original design. We finally get a good look at Stella, and her design has improved since the pilot. She's a speaking role now, and I absolutely love her voice. It's great to see some more development of a character we only saw briefly in the pilot. We see Octavia introduced in her Owlet form. This sequence was adorable, but I don't really enjoy the child voice actor. It doesn't really fit her. I'm not quite sure how to describe it. This is followed with the You Will Be Okay song. This song is absolutely stunning. Its lyrics are stellar, along with mind-blowing visuals. The team definitely went all out with this song, and it really shows a step up in quality from the pilot and first episode. This song is one of the best in the series for sure. It's also quite emotional and shows the bond between Stolas and his daughter. My favourite part of the song is when Stolas mentions the 7 rings colliding. Just an absolutely superb song. This is immediately juxtaposed with Octavia waking up and listening to The World Is Burning Down Around Me. This song is good as well, and the jump from an emotional piece to something similar to what you'd hear on Spotify was great. The shift from baby Owlet Octavia and the current day depressed angsty teen Octavia is really well done. It really shows how far things have fallen in Stolas' household. We get a funny scene where Stella argues, and we get insight into Stolas' marital issues. Something I didn't notice the first time I watched was the Fizzarolli cereal. This is foreshadowing for the rest of the episode. I absolutely adore the current day Octavia voice actor. She nails the role, and Octavia's great character design and vocals are why she's one of my favourite characters in the show. The background music is great during this episode as well. One thing Vivzy and the team excel at is the good use of audio, and it really shines here. There's definitely a step up from the pilot on episode 1. We get a look into the Ars Goetia lore stuff as well. This will be more relevant in later episodes in season 2. Blitzo has a new phone case because it's his 3rd phone. I didn't notice this somehow when I first watched the show, but every time Blitzo has a phone, it gets destroyed and he has to buy a new one. The Lululand scene where Millie breaks through the door is hilarious. That clip was all over my feed on YouTube for like 3 weeks when the episode came out, and there was tons of memes about it. We also hear Luna in the background saying one sentence. It's funny, but she isn't actually seen during the rest of the episode, which is a shame. We get introduced to the greed ring. It is a really unique design which sets it apart from the normal visuals in Hell or the human world, which we saw in the first 2 episodes. Moxie screaming when the mascot shows up is great and was memed a lot. There's some lore stuff to do with Lululand and Lucifer, which was interesting to hear. Octavia's corporate shame joke was great, and the Moxie mascot joke as well was hilarious. Definitely one of my favourite parts in the episode. We also get to see a background character who shows up later in episode 7 in Ozzy's palace. The not a day hooker joke is great, and this scene is where my iconic profile picture comes from. I did a poll a while back if anyone wanted me to change my profile picture to Sally Mae or to keep Octavia, and Octavia won. I've seen people use my exact profile pic before on Instagram and Discord too, which was funny to see. We get a neat flashback scene where we see Owlet Octavia again. We also see Clown Blitzo, providing a bit of lore to Blitzo's backstory and his relationship with the circus. Robo Fizzarolli is introduced. I love his character and all of his jokes are great. This follows up with Fizzarolli and a bunch of FNAF looking characters singing the Lululand song. This song is superb and has some really great lines. The copyright joke was amusing, and the Has-Been Hotel Charlie reference fit in really well. I enjoyed seeing Stolas and Octavia watching the show. Octavia looking bored out of her mind, and an excited Stolas watching just perfectly encapsulated their 2 personalities. This frame was memed a lot on Reddit too, so it's definitely a fan favourite. This part is just a random thing I find funny, but when Octavia says she can't do it anymore, she sounds Scottish for some reason. Robo Fizzarolli dancing is funny, and I enjoyed him trash talking, especially when he says, "Ooh, someone's salty." We get introduced to Wally Wackford, who's a recurring character later. Short Stack Millie and her thing toy are cute. We get some scenes of Stolas and Octavia. We get some character development, and it's good to see them having a positive interaction interaction. The dog thing dragging Millie away and nobody noticing is funny as well. I absolutely adored this episode when it came out, and I still do. It's paced well, decently funny, and with some much better visuals. It also develops some characters, introduces Stella, Octavia, and RoboFizz, which sets up for Fizzarolli himself later. The only two gripes with the episode is the fact that we didn't see Luna and Owlet Octavia's voice actor. The songs and everything else make up for those problems though. I'm placing this episode in A tier. I think it's the episode all the other ones should be compared to. Episode 3 starts with us hearing a short snippet of the song called Mustang Dong. I think it's okay, but it's nothing spectacular. We then get introduced to one of the series' main villains, Veronica. She's one of my favourite characters in the show. Her design, voice, and witty jokes match perfectly to create a really charming villain. We also get to see Luna again since she was absent from the last episode. We see a cute meme frame of her where she's peeking out of the window. Another new character, Vortex, is introduced. He has a really good voice and it matches his design quite well. I thought the call HR joke was quite funny. We also learn about Veronica and Blitzo's past romance. This will be more relevant in episode 7, but it explains the troubled relationship between the two characters. Moxie's "Is she blind" meme was funny. Embarrassed Luna is also quite cute. Moxie being the tail end of a lot of jokes was another common theme, especially when he was told to shut the fuck up. We also get introduced to Veronica's crew. They all have great designs and we get to see them in future episodes as well. The fourth wall break is fantastic. It's a perfect call out to the community. It was memed a ton on Reddit when the episode first came out. When we see a bunch of characters queuing outside, we can see one of the characters from Hazbin Hotel in the line. Moxie's not wanting to kill tangent has also ended, thankfully. We also get a first look at Luna's human disguise. I'm honestly not a fan of human Luna. I just think her Hellhound form looks way better, while in human form she just looks like one of Veronica's crew. This is my favourite part of the episode, but Veronica Mayday's Vacate a Bonetown song is a banger. It's easily one of the best songs in the entire series. I'm going to mention that it's a bit frustrating that Veronica's song still isn't out on its own. The other Helluva Boss songs are available, however Sam Haft only has 2 of his own versions, which sound nothing like Vacate a Bonetown. There's fan edits, but they sound pretty horrible honestly. I really hope we get the full, uncut Vacate a Bonetown song, or its instrumental one day. The scene where Blitzo kills a guy is an Angel Dust reference. The Where Is My Baby clip was quite funny and was memed a lot too. We get a bit of dialogue between Luna and Vortex about a potential romance. I honestly feel like it's a little forced. If the characters gradually get to know each other, it would make more sense, rather than Luna immediately simping for Vortex. It is also a step in the right direction for developing Luna as something other than a gimmick token character. Luna has mainly been viewed as furry bait, so developing her relationships with characters other than Moxie and Blitzo is great. Drunk Moxie is another funny part in the episode. The switch between Moxie's normal calm and calculated personality to being completely drunk is fantastic. We get to see Millie being a badass when she kills the mutant fish. It really cements her into the crew as the best fighter of them all. She's funny and lighthearted, but when Moxie or the crew are in trouble, she becomes enraged and will do anything to save them. This will be a running gag in the series, but we see the Moxie pegging joke gag being introduced. The background music during this episode is also quite good. It sounds like a copyrighted song. One gripe with the episode is that they don't explain how Veronica and her crew escaped the police or how they got there in the first place. There's been a number of Reddit posts discussing this, so I'm glad I'm not the only one who was confused. We then see the Mustang Dong song return for the outro. As for my thoughts on the episode, I really enjoyed it. For me, the best thing in this episode was the introduction of Veronica and her great song. We managed to get more lore regarding Blitz and Luna's backstory as well. We got to see another side of Luna which we haven't seen before. We're used to her being angry or bored, but instead we saw her blush, laugh and get nervous. It's a step in the right direction. As for the bad things, you can definitely put forward the argument that the story is a bit weak. Although characters mistaking Moxie for a possum is funny, it's a bit weird that the characters don't care about Blitzo and the crew blowing people's heads off, but they're suddenly scared of a giant fish. We don't see the rest of the crew wearing disguises, oddly, apart from Luna. Other than those small nitpicks, this episode was great. I'm going to place it in B tier. I don't think it was as good as Lululand, but it definitely sets the stage for future episodes and provides some great jokes and lore. Episode 4 starts off with us being introduced to the Shrub characters. We also get the Shrub song. To be honest, I'm not really a fan of their song. It's catchy, but since it's meant to be a rip-off of the Imp jingle, it just sounds like a worse version. The stop getting hysterical fatty joke from Luna is quite funny. It carries on the gag of her calling Moxie fat. One thing that you might have missed in the background was that the Amazing Imps poster has changed. It now only features Blitzo and his sister. We get introduced to Loopty Goopty. I don't like his character. It feels a bit cringeworthy and none of his jokes are funny. His design looks odd as well. It doesn't really fit in with the rest of the cast. Like if you compare him to other sinners in Hazbin Hotel Pilot, those characters look a million times better than Loopty. We then get introduced to Lyle Lipton. I don't really enjoy his character either. The scene where the cast are in furry costumes is great. Moxie and Millie's outfits definitely look the best. One part I enjoyed in particular was the scene with the hashtag cuties gnome. The cross-dressing outfits are also pretty good. The highlight of the episode is definitely the fight scene. The animation for the scene is really good and you can tell the team put a lot of effort into it. Seeing Millie and Moxie kiss mid-air was beautiful as well. In the background you can see a character that resembles Angel Dust. Apparently they're meant to resemble a cast member at Spindle though. We get to see Deary appear and she's voiced by Vivzy. I love the no, sorry, no joke. I also think Deary's definitely the best shrub character out of all of them. Lastly, at the end we see Wally Wackford again. And we also get to see Lyle Lipton as a sinner. He looks like Wario or Eggman, but this doesn't really change my opinion of him. Overall, I thought this episode was definitely the worst one so far. The story is very predictable and feels like one of those old Roadrunner Cartoon Network cartoons. The Shrubs as villains are pretty mid as well. If you compare them to Striker, Veronica, or Robo Frizzaroli, they're nowhere near as good. Nothing noteworthy really happens in the episode either. Prior to rewatching it, I completely forgot what happens in this episode. That basically sums up my thoughts on it. For the rankings, I'm gonna put it in D tier. It's not necessarily a bad episode, but compared to the others, it's not great. So now we're into episode 5. We are immediately shown a scene of Stolas and Blitzer's romance. It shows how kinky they are and sets up the story for the rest of the episode. The fuck clients joke was great. It just links back to the running gag that IMP is a terrible business with a bad reputation. I didn't notice this at first, but you can see another Fizzaroli reference on the board above Moxie and Millie's apartment. We also now finally get a first look at the Wrath Ring. Vivzy and the team are just fantastic at setting the stage for each ring. The Wrath Ring looks dusty and desolate, which fits the setting perfectly. It contrasts quite well to the locations we've seen in past episodes, which were either inside Imp City, Lululand, or the human world. We get introduced to Millie's parents. They have good voice actors and nice designs. We also get introduced to Striker. He has a fantastic character design and immediately gives you the impression that he has something sinister going on. Norman Reedus does a great job as the voice actor as well. We also get introduced to Sally Mae. I love her design and voice actor. We only get to see her briefly in the episode though, so I hope we get to see more of her in season 2. And Striker's Sweet Victory song is pretty good. The cowboy reference was neat as well. I just like to mention it again, but the Wrath scenery is gorgeous. The team really went all out in making a believable world with unique sets and backdrops. We get introduced to angelic weapons. It would be cool if we find out how Striker managed to obtain his gun, since they're supposed to be rare. I noticed this the second time watching the episode, but there's some audio background errors. I'll play the scene now, but the audio background music is obnoxious and cuts in randomly and is too loud.
By technological advances in warfare, I've researched the history of weaponry.
Obviously this is just a small nitpick, but it took me out of the episode a little. We get shown Blitzo's anxiety again. This just further fleshes out his character as a pompous leader who behind closed doors is anxious and scared due to his past. We only see Luna a couple times in this episode, but her outfit is really good. We get introduced to the plot point that Stella wants Stolas dead. I just love Stella as a character. It's good that we got to see her again. I hope we get an entire episode dedicated to her in the future. We also see Octavia again, briefly listening to music. She doesn't speak, however. And that's the episode over. I thought this episode was alright. It mainly serves to continue the story. It introduces Striker as another villain, Stella wanting to kill Stolas, which makes her another villain, the Wrath Ring, and it develops Moxie and Millie's relationship. Since this episode is more about world building than humour, I feel like it can be excused for the lack of humour. There were a couple Reddit posts talking about laggy frame rate and choppy animation during this episode. I personally didn't notice any errors, but that could be listed as a problem as well. As for the rating, I'm giving it a solid B. It's definitely better than the Shrubs episode, but there isn't any standout moments that warrant giving it an A rating. We're now on to episode 6. One thing that you may have noticed is that each episode is gradually getting longer in length, with episode 6 being the longest in the entire series, sitting at 22 minutes. This is definitely a positive for the episode. We get introduced to 2 FBI agents called 1 and 2. I thought their characters were alright, but the voice acting was a little bit annoying. The IMP team also gets captured. Seeing Millie's reaction to her husband's capture really emphasises how much he means to her. The interrogation scene was great, especially Moxie's coffee order. One major point for this episode is the fantastic fight scenes. The first fight scene is well done with excellent choreography and violence. We get the return of the Millie pegging joke again, this time getting confirmation that Millie does in fact peg Moxie. This is easily my favourite part of the episode, but the Bad Trip song is fantastic. The lyrics are great, the animation is superb, and it looks like something you'd see in a proper movie. It reminds me of that scene in Family Guy where Stu and Brian go to the Disney universe. This song is definitely one of the best ones in the series. The acid trip during the song also highlights Blitzo's insecurities regarding Striker, Fizzaroli, and Veronica. We get to see Moxie in a dress too, which is brilliant. We also see the Moxie pegging joke return again during the song. Later on in the episode we get another gritty fight scene. Again, just like the first fight, it's well choreographed with good audio as well. Stolas showing up at the end was terrifying. It also shows off how powerful he is in his different forms like his father Paimon. This is something we didn't get to see much in earlier episodes, with Stolas normally being the one who needs protection. Seeing this narrative flip was wonderful, and I hope we get to see more of his powers in season 2. We also get the famous Stolas and Blitzo kiss scene. This was memed quite a lot. The episode then finishes up with the footage of the entire episode being recorded by the FBI. This establishes the FBI as future antagonists. Overall, I thought this episode was fantastic. I was originally going to place it in B tier, but after reviewing everything, I think it deserves A tier. The animation and song was a step up for Vivzy and really set this episode apart from the rest. We also got tons of character development from the entire cast. It was good to see Millie and Luna working with the team, rather than being the normal side characters like they usually are. The only real gripe I have with the episode is that the antagonists are not that threatening. Just seeing hordes of FBI agents being killed was definitely cool, but you don't really feel worried that something bad is going to happen to the team, compared to episode 5 where you felt real tension because of Stryker and his angelic weapons. And now we're at part 1 of the finale, episode 7. I'll have my other video going more in depth on this listed below, but originally there was meant to be 2 parts to the finale. The second part has been indefinitely delayed. As a result of this, episode 7 is only 17 minutes long. I won't use this as a negative though, so don't worry about it affecting the rating. We get to see each ring shown during a scene. It finally explains how citizens are able to travel between rings. I can't wait for season 2 because we'll most likely see the rest of the rings. There's some Hazbin Hotel references on Blitzo's newspaper. We get to see the Lost Ring again. The vibrant colours contrast well to the dull, dark colours of the last 2 episodes. The really nice eyes daddy joke was quite funny. If you didn't notice, there's an angel dust reference on a poster in the background. The scene where depressed Stolas watches TV and says that's a mood Gabriella is great. One thing I didn't notice the first time I watched this episode was that Stolas puts a little grey mark in his hair, just like the character in the TV show he was watching. The beat it shithead altercation was great. It reminded me of the salty spittoon meme from SpongeBob. We get a look inside Ozzy's club. The interior is fantastic and you can really tell how much effort the team put into making everything stand out. There's also a ton of cool references in the background, one example being members of Verosika's crew. I didn't notice this the first time, but Blitzo has to sit on top of books because he's so small. Blitzo and Stolas talking also does a good representation of their relationship, since it's mainly been transactional up until now. We finally get to see the actual Fizzaroli. His design is wonderful and his voice actor does a great job. Added on to what I said before, in the background you can see characters from other rings. They all have unique designs related to which ring they're from. Verosika is reintroduced and her outfit is stunning. I enjoyed seeing the squirters, if only for a second too. One of my favourite jokes of the episode was the "keep that guy far away from me" meme. Fizzaroli making fun of Moxie for not having a creative stage name is great as well. Moxie then performs a solo song which is really sweet. After this we get introduced to Asmodeus, who is another demon lord. When I first watched this episode I thought the character in the background was Valentino from Hazbin Hotel, so I wonder if anyone else thought the same when they first watched the episode. Moxie's song is then followed up by Ozzy and Fizzaroli singing together. This House of Asmodeus song is fantastic and I think it might be my favourite song in the whole series. Verosika sings a part of the song as well, providing much more needed context on her and Blitzo's relationship that has been painted as being pretty bad so far. Once again, her voice actor does a fantastic job. We see Ozzy and Fizz making fun of Stolas for dating Blitzo. This again just reiterates how taboo their relationship is. Millie fucking kills Fizzaroli, and seeing sad Ozzy was great. Millie and Moxie kiss again, which is adorable. I myself did a video on this and I saw a couple other people theorize it, but it seems like Fizzaroli and Asmodeus are dating. The way they interact with each other gives off those vibes. This episode also highlights the 3 different relationships. Moxie and Millie's is perfect. Stolas and Blitzo's relationship is a transactional disaster, and Asmodeus and Fizzaroli isn't confirmed yet. The get the fuck out joke was great. The sad car scene again just reiterates that Stolas and Blitzo are in a bad relationship. There's some neat references in the background of Blitzo's room, such as him scribbling out his face, highlighting his insecurities. We see that Tex has invited Luna to a party, which explains her absence in the episode. We can see Blitzo's party apps on his phone. Each app references different characters in the show. We lastly see Blitzo going through his phone, and we see his past, such as his relationship with Verosika, friendship with Fizzaroli, and his sister and mum too. We see him reflecting on the past relationships and how he screwed them all up. This episode then ends abruptly, because it was meant to have a second part, but of course due to legal garbage, which I covered in my other video, it was postponed. As for my thoughts on it, episode 7 was nearly perfect. It had a combination of all the good parts from previous episodes. It had character development, along with a great musical song. It also provided Easter eggs and hints to future episodes. The animation was once again stellar. This episode was an emotional roller coaster. It's definitely both the funniest, but also the saddest episode to date. The only downside obviously is that the episode ends abruptly, but this was out of the team's control. As for my rating, I'm giving episode 7 the highest rating of S tier. I think it's the best episode in season 1 by far. Overall, I really enjoyed this season. Each episode brought something new to the table. There are certainly some that are better than others though. I really enjoyed meeting the cast of characters characters, and I can't wait to see what happens in season 2. There are a couple of improvements that I think could be made though. One being that an episode focused on the Society of Hell would have been good. There's been hints and dialogue about Hell's hierarchy, but seeing how things function in an episode would have been wonderful. Perhaps focusing on the duties of an Ars Goetia perhaps. This would give us more development into Solas's role in the story and help to flesh out the world more. Another thing to note is that so far 3 rings have been missing, which are Envy, Sloth and Gluttony. Visiting each of these rings would be something I hope happens in season 2. Lastly, another critique is that some of the characters are a bit one-dimensional. The main offenders that people mention online are Millie and Luna. Millie is normally cited as Moxie's wife, while Luna is just mentioned as the goth furry bait. I understand where these criticisms are coming from though, especially since Millie normally just does the fighting, with Luna only serving background roles in a couple episodes or not being seen at all. It gives off the impression that these two characters were afterthoughts. I think the main problem is that these characters were only made in 2019, unlike the has-been characters who had years to get developed due to being in Vivzi's past series, Zoophobia. Vivzi has said on live streams that the team has learned a lot from making season 1, so I'm hopeful for the future. So that's my ranking on season 1 of Helluva Boss. If you've watched this far, thanks for sticking around. If you have any thoughts or ideas, feel free to share them in the comments. A lot of the things I mentioned are just some of my thoughts, so if you have any counter arguments or things you want to discuss, let me know down below or in my Discord server and I'll respond. I'd like to thank Iox as well for helping with the video. Thanks for watching, bye.